Off with man, how's the pandemic been on you and everybody in your family? I mean, the whole world's going crazy right now.
Yeah, man, I've been super fortunate in the pandemic. I think so. I try to have like a positive mindset through everything. So for me, when the whole pandemic started, I'm a personal trainer, so I lost my job technically. I deemed unnecessary. What I did was I bought the gym that I was working at, redesigned it, refinished it. I'm sitting there right now. Did all that. So I bought the gym, redid it. Now I'm a gym owner. So the pandemic's actually worked out better for me. So now I have my job. Gym's open, running a gym. Got a UFC fight on 2 days' notice. So I mean that works out well too. My wife and I just bought a new house. So actually, pandemic's actually worked out pretty well for me. I really can't be upset about it.
I want to talk about that fight specifically. I mean, I know it didn't go your way, but you came in on, like you said, 2 days' notice. I mean, what was the mentality like throughout the pandemic? Was it like stay ready in case there's a call, or how'd you even come about knowing that there's an opportunity there for you?
Yeah. So, I always stay ready. I'm always training. I don't ever quit training. I'm in the gym every single day. The intent behind training isn't always fight camp, but with training every day, I was still ready. I knew I was on the cusp of getting a call in 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever the time was. The mindset was just be ready whenever that phone call comes. That was my mentality. I was going to do whatever I could to get in the UFC, whether it was a short notice fight, whether it was Contender Series, whether it was anything like that. I was prepared for that. The phone call came about just that Thursday. My manager called me and said, "Hey, can you drop everything, get on a plane, and be in Vegas? The plane leaves at 3 p.m. Can you do that?" Mind you, it's 12:45, and I'm at work. Canceled all my clients, ran home, grabbed a suitcase, and booked to the airport. Just on excitement and panic at the same time.
There's I mean, you see both sides. Justin James had it. He came in a few days' notice, ended up winning. Ray Rodriguez a couple of weeks ago, same thing. He accepted the fight the day of. Like, it was crazy. So you see it both ways. Sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. Was there any hesitation to be like, you know what, at this point in my career, I got to make sure I do this right? I know the UFC's opportunity is right there. I may never get it again, but it is 2 days' notice. Was there any hesitation? I mean, there's also the pandemic and all this other stuff going on. Was there ever a doubt in your mind where you were like, maybe it's not the time?
Absolutely not. No, that never. With all the shit stacked against me, I was still like, this is what I've been working for, regardless of the situation, regardless of what's stacked in front of me. I'm gonna take this opportunity and just run with it.
That being said, man, now you've got an actual fight camp. You got some time to train. Your opponent's been announced, Cole Williams. How do you feel about that fight?
I think it's a great fight for me. I think we're both 0-1 in the UFC, but I think if you look at it on paper, I'm way more athletic than he is. I think I have a lot more tools than he does. He's a good wrestler, good rear hand, but we're preparing for that. I think my athleticism will outshine him. I think my power will beat him too. So I'm excited about the fight. I also fought one of his teammates, so I know that has to be playing a factor in the whole thing. I fought Mark Lemminger a couple years ago, so I feel really good going about the fight.
Do you focus mainly on your opponent, or do you focus mainly on you? Like, I've heard both sides. Some guys like dissect and they study their opponent day in and day out. Like, do you do that, or do you focus on your own game plan and whatever he does, he does?
Yeah. So this is actually the first time I've ever had a camp. Like, actually had a fight that's 10 weeks out. Like, I've never. It's always like, hey, you got 3 weeks. Can you fight? Sure, not a problem. Can you fight in 48 hours? Sure, not a problem. So I've never actually had the time to like sit down and dissect a person. Like, I think I fought on 3-4 weeks. The last fight before the UFC was about 4 weeks. So I had time to like know who the person is, look at it. I'm the type of person that I focus on me. I can't control what he's doing. I know I can train harder. I know I can work harder. I know I can put in more effort than he can, and that's all I can control. So he can do whatever he wants to. I have my coaches to kind of game plan for me and set up specific stuff that will work for me in the fight. But for me, I focus on me.
So your last fight, Takashi Sato, I don't want to go into it a whole lot. We didn't see a whole lot of you. It was short notice. There's a lot of reasons that it didn't play out the way it should have. That being said, what's the biggest lesson you took from that fight that you're going to apply to the Cole Williams fight?
I mean, there's not a lot of lessons you can't take from a 40-second fight, but the lesson I learned is the intent that I'm putting in the gym is different, right? When I was training for that fight, I was in the gym, I was working, but it wasn't with intent to go out and fight. It wasn't for the intent to go out and win. I wasn't competing. I was just in the gym, getting better, learning, all that stuff. For this fight, it's literally I'm competing every day. I'm finding the best training partners I can that mock him. I'm doing everything I can to better myself for this fight instead of just being in the gym.
You hear it with guys like Donald Cerrone, where before they even go in the fight, they know that they're not ready. It's like mentally they weren't there, even though physically he feels great. Do you feel like that had something to do with it as well? Like, I only had 2 days really to even mentally focus that I was going to get into a fight where he's going to try to kill me. Do you think the game's just as much mental as it is physical?
Oh, 100%. I agree with that. That wasn't the case for me. I don't believe. I've had that. I've had in past years, I've had mental problems of knowing that, hey, like I wasn't mentally ready for this fight, and I've lost fights that I should have won. That was a problem before the UFC, but I didn't feel that way for this fight. I knew I belonged in the UFC. I knew this is where I wanted to be, and I knew I prepared for it. It just wasn't my night, and he just came out the victor, and that's just how it played out.
It's funny you said I knew I belonged in the UFC. I listened to an interview, I think it was with Cage Sided or something like that, of yours a little over a year ago, and you said, I'm going to be in the UFC by the end of 2020. And, the pandemic hit, and, you probably at one point felt like, man, this isn't going to happen. I said 2020. There's no way it's going to happen. And, I mean, you were 33 years old coming into 2020. Did you feel like at any point that maybe it wasn't going to happen?
Not a little bit, but not really. Like I said, I believe in thoughts become things, positive mindset towards everything. But as soon as the pandemic hit, James Krause, my coach, and Joe Wooster both texted and said, hey, whatever you're doing, get your shit ready because everything's going crazy. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who's going to drop out. We don't know what's going to happen there. So they literally texted me that day and said, hey, just be prepared for anything. And that's kind of what I did.
You're working with, you mentioned James Krause. He's one of the, in my opinion, the best coaches in MMA right now. Describe how much it's meant to you and your, I guess your game plan and the way you fight to have someone like him in your corner.
Man, you don't have coaches like him, right? You have the old school coaches who put you. I've been to other schools. I've been to different places, and you don't have the same detail. You don't have the same organization that James Krause puts in the game. He really sits down. He's a student of the game. He really tries to understand the game and better himself and better his students. He doesn't care about fighting. He doesn't care. I mean, he loves fighting, but he'd rather be a better coach than a UFC champion, if that makes any sense at all. It's been fantastic. The dude's so smart. It's fun to watch him. I've been with him for about 6 years now. It's fun to watch his progression, not only as a fighter, but as a coach. And then as a leader to lead other fighters and other coaches too. It's fun to watch. I posted on Instagram the other day. It says James Krause's post-fight speeches are underrated because after every practice we sit down. He's like, "Hey, I'm not going to rant," and it's 20 minutes later, but you're focusing because he's dropping knowledge the whole time, and it's really impactful. It's really they say you are who you surround yourself with, and that whole room we have 13, 14 UFC fighters in one small Glory MMA room in Lee's. Like that's who you're surrounding yourself with. So I mean. To have him, he's helped build that so much. So he's you said it best. He's the best coach out there. You don't see people like when you listen to corners in UFC fights, they're like, hey, you're doing a great job. You can beat this guy. Do this. Or James Krause is literally coaching you. You can hear him in the background. He's literally coaching you. Hey, do this. Do this. Do this. He's looking for this. We're doing he's just the best coach in the game, 100%.
He had, in my opinion, one of the most badass moments I've seen, stepping up on short notice, up arguably 2 divisions. I mean, the guy fought at lightweight.
Yep.
He fought at 185 on 1 day's notice. What was your thought when he took that fight?
That dude's a gangster. I Booster, is Krause fighting? He's like, yep. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Dude's a gangster. He is. He's all about that. He's all about that life. He is. It's not. It's a lot of people can preach about that stuff. Say, hey, be ready for whatever it is. Be ready for do this, and he's going to lead by example. He's going to do that. So it's hard to respect a man like that.
Going into this fight, who's been your main training partners? I see pictures of you training with guys like Julian Marquez, but who's been your main training partner for this training camp?
We got a lot of guys. We got a lot of good up and coming pros, good wrestlers. A lot of college wrestlers. We got Mikey England, who's savage. Devin Weber, he's a good college wrestler too. Grant Dawson. I train with Julian Marquez all the time too. Yeah. He's a training partner for my upcoming fight, so I've been with him a lot. We got a couple other guys, Zach Long, just people we wouldn't know about, but just good wrestlers, good boxers, just kind of a mix of what I'm looking for.
Yeah, Grant Dawson's an absolute stud. I think the guy is going to be he's going to be a future champion someday.
Oh, I 100% agree with that.
There's throughout the pandemic there was one main thing that everyone was talking about, and that was Fight Island. And I know you fought at the Apex. Did part of you wish like maybe I could go and experience this, or are you happy back home in the United States?
Yep. Give me Vegas every time. Give me Vegas every time. I want to be home Sunday. Do I want to Fight Island? Of course I do. It sounds cool. I'd really go to Fight Island out of a pandemic, right? I don't want to fly to Vegas, take a corona test, fly 17 hours, take a corona test, get quarantined in a hotel room for 48 hours, lose my freaking mind, and then fight at 4 a.m. Like that doesn't, and then fly 17 hours home. That doesn't sound good to me. I'll fly out Tuesday. I'll make my weight. I'll beat Cole Williams, and I'll fly home, be home Sunday. That sounds way better than Fight Island. Yeah, Abu Dhabi sounds cool. The Ferrari racetrack, all that stuff. It'd be a cool experience, but not during a pandemic. Not during where I came.
You fought. You have like over 20 fights. The one thing that everyone's been talking about too is the empty arena. I mean, it's got to feel weird walking out, not hearing anybody, not seeing anybody to your side. What was that experience like? And do you think that plays a factor into your fighting style? Like, are you someone that feeds off the crowd, or do you manage to drown all that out?
It's different every time. Sometimes I notice it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I feed off it, sometimes I don't. The fight before the UFC was a pretty big crowd, probably about 3,500 people, and I had friends and families on the catwalk. I could high five them, and it was cool. It was a really good atmosphere. With Fight Island, I didn't really notice it. I was more like I had to focus on the fight. I had to be in tune with that. I do remember walking out and looking up at the big screen and seeing my face on it, and I smiled. And I remember just being like, I mean, if win, lose, or draw, I don't give a shit. I'm here, and this is pretty cool for me. This is a dream come true. So I kind of relaxed there. I didn't really realize there wasn't a crowd. But having no crowd also plays into, having James Krause in your corner. You can hear that dude way better no matter what. So he gives great instructions, so it's easier to hear. But yeah, I don't care either way. You're going to get fans regardless because it's on television, but I don't think it really plays too much into it.
I want to talk about the last fight there on Fight Island for the second go-around. Khabib Nurmagomedov, Justin Gaethje. Everybody's been talking about it. What's your opinion on the fight, and what's your prediction if you have one? Man,
I'm glad you asked that question. I really am. I've been watching a lot of pros picks on YouTube and a lot of people, and I'm like, what would I say? Man, it's Khabib. You can't bet against Khabib. 28-0, like 20. Was it 28-0? Yeah. You can't bet against the dude. Justin Gaethje is an absolute savage. I think his footwork is completely underrated. I think his power he has decent power. I still think it goes 5 rounds. I don't think Khabib finishes him, but I think Khabib comes out with the victory. I think Gaethje's going to get up a couple times, but I still think Khabib's going to do what Khabib does and hold him down, beat him up. But I could be wrong. That's the beauty of it. I could be wrong. Gaethje could smoke him in the first round. You never know. Gaethje has that ability. So Gaethje has the power, but it's also Khabib. You can't bet against Khabib.
Yeah, I've been back and forth on this fight so many times because I'm a diehard Khabib fan, and no one's ever been able to find a hole in his game. I mean, we know his stand-up's not amazing, but he dropped Conor. He's done all that, and his wrestling is amazing. But we haven't really seen Gaethje's wrestling, but we know it's good. It's D1. So I've been back and forth, man. But it's kind of hard to pick against a guy who's undefeated.
Yeah, Khabib dropped Conor Conor was worried about the takedown. I mean, you shoot a takedown, you have such good grappling. That's one of the things that makes Grant Dawson so dangerous. Like, Grant Dawson's striking is getting way better than it's ever been. But you have to worry about his takedown so much that he hits you with strikes and then takes you down. You're just like, what do you do? So the same thing with Khabib. I think he beat Conor because Conor was so worried about the takedown that Khabib could strike with him.
Yeah, I've been back and forth, man. It's such a hard fight to pick, and as a diehard Khabib fan, man, I do not want to see him lose. But if anyone's going to do it, I think it's Gaethje.
That's a fair statement. I don't think Ferguson had a chance. I think Gaethje's probably the best chance at beating Khabib.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I built this platform by making matchups after every fight. So after like the Izzy fight, I'd make a matchup with someone else, and kind of got some followers because of that. And I started this. That being said, is there a dream matchup for you? Someone that, you know, before it's all said and done, you'd want to say, you know what, I tested my skills against this guy, whether it's someone you like or dislike or just someone you've admired throughout your entire career.
Oh man, not somebody I admire, not somebody I even give a shit about. I want to fight Mike Perry. I don't know why. I just want to fight Mike Perry. I think he's a crazy dude, but I think it's definitely fight of the night potential right there. Like there's no doubt somebody's going to sleep. But I think it'd be a fun, exciting fight. That's just kind of where I've been in the past year of trying to get in the UFC. Who would I want to fight? And Mike Perry is one of those guys.
Yeah, everybody calls out Mike Perry. Everybody loves Mike Perry or hates him, and that's the thing.
Same time, so I just want to fight Mike Perry.
One last question, and then I'll let you go. I've been asking different UFC fighters who I've had on this question. A lot of them come from different backgrounds. You know, Wonderboy has karate. Some guys have wrestling backgrounds. That being said, who do you think is the greatest of all time? Unbiased opinion based on whether it's wrestling or karate. Who do you think is the greatest mixed martial artist of all time?
George St. Pierre. Bar none. George St. Pierre. Like John Jones is probably one of the best fighters because he's John Jones. But I think mixing it up, I think mixed martial arts, you break down who mixed martial artist is, George St. Pierre, bar none.
Yeah.
Also, my favorite fighter, so like it is a biased opinion, but at the same time it's not.
As a Canadian, I love that answer. I don't think there's a better answer. So I love it.
Nailed it.
That one last before we go, people who haven't seen your fights, what can they expect from you on October 31st?
Yeah, man. Thanks for asking that. I'm an explosive fighter. I cover distance really well. I have an overhand right from hell that if it touches people, they go to sleep. I do a really good job. So, like I said, George St. Pierre is my pick, but he's also the guy I kind of idolized my career around. So I tried to do a good job of blending wrestling and striking and all that stuff together. So that's kind of what I do. I'm a good wrestler. I didn't wrestle in college, but I'm a good wrestler mixed in with really good striking and a lot of power.
All right, man. Thank you very much for the time. I've been a fan of yours for a while. I'm glad you're in the UFC, and I can't wait to see you fight on October 31st.
I appreciate that so much. Thanks for having me on, man.
All the best. Stay safe. Don't catch anything.
I'll do my best.